Let's give God the glory and turn to each other and say good morning. Say good morning. Uh, so we're going to do chapter 27, Book of Acts. So I don't have any questions to answer. So go straight into 27. So 27 is the one chapter before the end of Book of Acts. So basically 27 and 28 is the shipwreck leaving from Caesarea toward Rome, and then how he arrived in Rome, and then he continued on his ministry. Unfortunately, even though Jesus told him that he will witness Jesus in front of Caesar, we don't have the record of it. So lots of times, when we finish IGL, it is the third day, and then rest of the life is fourth day, right? So Book of Acts is like that. Book of Acts is, he has first, second, third, fourth trip, and then he's, continue on the trips. So if we think of that, then I think it'll be safe. So today what we're going to do is I'm going to go through chapter 27. It's not really complicated, but it is kind of fun to see. But he goes through the storms and then almost losing his life. But I think he knew that he was not going to die, because he was told by Jesus, "You will be my witness in Rome." So he's not going to be the fish bait. So he knew that he was going to end up in Rome. But anyways, so how he ended up in Rome and how he goes through the storm, and then at the end, I'm going to give you a brief testimony. I was thinking, the darkness that Apostle Paul went through in chapter 27, and I was looking through in my life experience, when was the darkest moment that I went through, and I'm going to give you the testimony. This testimony is usually given during the IGL, so probably not many of you know the fine detail of it, during the IGL, I have some time, so I give a very detailed history of me moving from Texas to Los Angeles. So I'm going to try to give the detailed history. That was probably a darkest moment of my life in my Christian walk. So I'm going to try to be as accurate as possible, even though it is almost 35 years ago. So I did some research and I'm going to show you some. So let's go dive into chapter 27. It's basically what do you call it? A ship voyage from Caesarea to Rome. Okay, so would you read it, please?
When it was decided that we would sail for Italy, Paul and some other prisoners were handed over to a centurion named Julius, who belonged to the imperial regiment. We boarded a ship from Adramyttium about to sail for ports along the coast of the province of Asia, and we put out to sea. Aristarchus, a Macedonian from Thessalonica, was with us. The next day we landed at Sidon, and Julius, in kindness to Paul, allowed him to go to his friends so they might provide for his needs. From there we put out to sea again and passed to the lee of Cyprus, because the winds were against us. When we had sailed across the open sea off the coast of Cilicia and Pamphylia, we landed at Myra in Lycia. There the centurion found an Alexandrian ship sailing for Italy and put us on board. We made slow headway for many days and had difficulty arriving off Cnidus. When the wind did not allow us to hold our course, we sailed to the lee of Crete, opposite Salamine. We moved along the coast with difficulty and came to a place called Fair Havens, near the town of Lycia. Much time had been lost, and sailing had already become dangerous, because by now it was the day after Atonement. So Paul warned them, "Men, I can see that our voyage is going to be disastrous and bring great loss to ship and cargo and to our own lives also." But the centurion, instead of listening to what Paul said, followed the advice of the pilot and of the owner of the ship. Since the harbor was unsuitable to winter in, the majority decided that we should sail on, hoping to reach Phoenix and winter there. This was a harbor in Crete, facing both southwest and northwest. When a gentle south wind began to blow, they saw their opportunity, so they weighed anchor and sailed along the shore of Crete. Before very long, a wind of hurricane force, called the northeaster, swept down from the island. The ship was caught by the storm and could not head into the wind, so we gave way to it and were driven along. As we passed to the lee of a small island called Cauda, we were hardly able to make the lifeboat secure, so the men hoisted it aboard. Then they passed ropes under the ship itself to hold it together, because they were afraid they would run it aground on the sandbars of Syrtis. They lowered the sea anchor and let the ship be driven along. We took such a violent battering from the storm that the next day they began to throw the cargo overboard. On the third day, they threw the ship's tackle overboard with their own hands. When neither sun nor stars appeared for many days and the storm continued raging, we finally gave up all hope of being saved. After they had gone a long time without food, Paul stood up before them and said, "Men, you should have taken my advice not to sail from Crete. Then you would have spared yourselves this damage and loss. But now I urge you to keep up your courage, because not one of you will be lost. Only the ship will be destroyed." Last night an angel of the God to whom I belong and whom I serve stood beside me and said, "Do not be afraid, Paul. You must stand trial before Caesar, and God has graciously given you the lives of all who sail with you. So keep up your courage, men, for I have faith in God that it will happen just as he told me. Nevertheless, we must run aground on some island." On the 14th night, we were still being driven across the Adriatic Sea, when about midnight the sailors sensed they were approaching land. They took soundings and found that the water was 120 feet deep. A short time later, they took soundings again and found it was 90 feet deep. Fearing that we would be dashed against the rocks, they dropped 4 anchors from the stern and prayed for daylight. In an attempt to escape from the ship, the sailors let the lifeboat down into the sea, pretending they were going to lower some anchors from the bow. Then Paul said to the centurion and the soldiers, "Unless these men stay with the ship, you cannot be saved." So the soldiers cut the ropes that held the lifeboat and let it drift away. Just before dawn, Paul urged them all to eat. "For the last 14 days, he said, you have been in constant suspense and have gone without food. You haven't eaten anything. Now I urge you to take some food. You need it to survive. Not one of you will lose a single hair from his head." After he said this, he took some bread and gave thanks to God in front of them all. Then he broke it and began to eat. They were all encouraged and ate some food themselves. Altogether, there were 276 of us on board. When they had eaten as much as they wanted, they lightened the ship by throwing the grain into the sea. When daylight came, they did not recognize the land, but they saw a bay with a sandy beach where they decided to run the ship aground if they could. Cutting loose the anchors, they left them in the sea and at the same time untied the ropes that held the rudders. Then they hoisted the foresail to the wind and made for the beach. But the ship struck a sandbar and ran aground. The bow stuck fast and would not move, and the stern was broken to pieces by the pounding of the surf. The soldiers planned to kill the prisoners to prevent any of them from swimming away and escaping. But the centurion wanted to spare Paul's life and kept them from carrying out their plan. He ordered those who could swim to jump overboard first and to get to land. The rest were to get there on planks or on other pieces of the ship. In this way, everyone reached land safely. Amen.
Amen. I didn't know Julius was a centurion. Okay, so let's look at some maps. See, this is the Mediterranean, and this is, you see it, right? This is Caesarea. From Caesarea, they were supposed to go to Rome here, okay, all the way. The actual year is 59 AD, 59 AD, and the autumn part of the year. So I was wondering, first of all, do you think there was a ship that would go from Caesarea all the way to Rome direct? What do you think? Huh? Probably do. Probably. So imagine if you are like an emperor or a governor. If you've been sent to Caesarea by emperor from Rome as a governor, would you go this way, or would you go straight? Huh? I mean, just like now or then, there's a fast track and a slow track. Okay, which one's cheaper? Slow track always. So imagine if you are carrying a prisoner, would you want to go fast track or slow track? Expensive one or cheap one? Cheap one. That's why they're taking all these routes. Okay, so anyways, so the ship. Lots of times we wonder what kind of ship would they be on. Remember, this is 2,000 years ago. So, I used to think the ship that in 12th century, 13th century, 14th century, 15th century, those ships that went to Africa, America, all these big ships, okay? Not it. Those are not it. So I did some research. What kind of ships? Let me see. These are the ships. So these are the first century ships. Basically, they have one sail, and they just have one body. As these ships get evolved, you see the big ship with many sails, right? Did you know that a ship can only go to one direction as the wind blows? Yeah, because these are wind sail, right? So if your a sail is like this and wind blows from here to there, where's your ship gonna go? This way, right? Well, that's in olden days, but now I hear the new sails, they have many different sails. So wind blows here, this can go this way too. Against the wind with a sail only, not with the engine. That's really odd, isn't it? You feel like it goes this way, but sometimes nowadays ship can go on the opposite direction. But obviously, these kind of ships cannot do that. So basically, we have to remember that these ships are mercy of wind at all. Just basically 100% wherever wind goes. So let's go back to the map one more time. So if you want to go from here to there, obviously you have to have a south wind, right? From the south to the west. Would you agree with that? So if the wind blows from north, from south, north to south, you're going to go backward. Yeah? Okay. So knowing that, let's go back to the scripture. So when it was decided that we would sail for Italy, which is Rome, Paul and some other prisoners were handed over to a centurion named Julius. Congratulations. Congratulations. Yes. Take her as a prisoner. Yes. Who belonged to the imperial regiment. Imperial regiment means that, this guy came from Rome. So we boarded a ship from Adramitium. So this is a local, those of you who speak Korean, this is a 무궁화, this is a slow, very, slow ship. So Adramitium about to sail for ports along the coast of the province of Asia. What does it mean? It means that this is a slow track. It says it stops all the ports in the Asia, right? So, and we put out to sea Aristarchus. Aristarchus is a rather famous. He's been with Apostle Paul with his trip many times. If you do the search, but anyways, the reason why the Aristarchus is here is that he's not a prisoner, right? It tells us that the Apostle Paul is not really a prisoner, like prisoner. He's like a house arrest. Why? because he's Roman. He's Roman, and he's not going to a prisoner. He's going to a court. So court basically. So some of his friends joining him. Aristarchus, a Macedonian from Thessalonica, was with us. The next day we landed in Sidon. So Sidon is basically right there, Sidon. So they didn't go very far. Remember, this is a slow track. Okay, so they landed in Sidon. And Julius, in kindness to Paul, allowed him to go to his friends so that they might provide for his need. Now, this also tells us that this is not a regular prisoner, right? This is a very cush prisoner. Why would Julius do that? Same thing, because he's a Roman citizen. He's a Roman citizen. From there, we put out to sea again and passed to the lee of Cyprus because the winds were against us. Now, so remember, this ship has to go, west, and the wind comes against it, and we can't go anywhere, right? So the map again. So this ship is going this way, instead of going straight this way. They're going along the shore and visiting these little, towns. So from there, we put out to sea again and passed to the lee of Cyprus. That was the Cyprus. This is Cyprus right there. So lee means in between. Okay, lee of Cyprus. So from there, we put out to sea again, the pass through the lee of Cyprus, because the winds were against us. When we had sailed across the open sea, off the coast of Cilicia and Pamphylia, we landed at Myra at Lycia. So Myra at Lycia is basically right there. So they went open sea. This is open sea. So they landed here. Okay. From there, the centurion found an Alexandrian ship sailing for Italy and put us on board. So they are changing the ship. So they are not a local ship anymore. They are going into the long-distance ship. This Alexandrian ship tells me that it is originated from Egypt. So why would Egyptian boat to go to Rome? Anybody know? Why would Egyptian boat would go to Rome? Trade? So let's think about this. Rome is a very small country. It has about 2 million population by now, right? So they don't have a good field to grow crops. So what are they going to eat? Italian food. What is the main thing on Italian food? Pasta and noodle and bread and bread and tomato. So where does the pasta come from? From Egypt. From Alexandria. Remember the delta of the Egypt? That's, the 12 tribes of Israelites when the Goshen. Remember Goshen? That's where the whole, so from the way back, as soon as Roman became a powerful country, the first country they wanted to conquer was Egypt. That's why the Cleopatra and all these people going to Rome is because their food is here. So this Alexandrian ship is carrying what? Wheat, okay? Pot? Okay, so this ship came from Egypt, eventually they are going to Rome, carrying wheat, okay? Carrying wheat, crops, okay? Wheat, okay? Alexandrian ship sailing for Italy and put us on board. So this is not a small boat. This is a large boat. How do we know? It has almost 300 people in it. Okay, 300 people is like a KM and EM combined is about 300. That's a number of people. And on top of that, they have a huge amount of wheat in the boat. So this is not a small boat. This is probably a boat looking like this one. Okay, so basically this is a large boat. Okay, this is a long distance boat, like 747. we made slow headway for many days. Why? The wind is not strong enough. So in these boats, when there's no wind, guess what? It has no propulsion, so it goes very slow. So we slow headway for many days and had difficulty arriving Cnidus. Cnidus is where the Crete is. When the wind did not allow us to hold our course, we sailed to the lee of Crete, opposite of Salmon. So basically they came all the way here and they arrived here at Crete. Okay? We moved along the coast with difficulty. Why? No wind. Do you know why there is no wind? I guess. Well, I'm going to let you pretty soon. Okay, so basically, when the summertime gets, hot air rises, right? So when summertime gets, the northern part of Europe gets heated. So air rises and the wind blows from the south to fill the air. Okay, does that make sense? Yeah. So and the wintertime it gets cooled and southern parts gets heated, so it rises and wind comes from north. Okay. So what happens in middle time, in fall? It even is, so it gets kind of confused and then it kind of calms down. That's when this happens. So this is around October or September or October. Okay, we moved along the coast with difficulty and came to a place called Fair Havens, near the town of Lycia. Okay, this is same as Crete. Much time had been lost, which means now it is October into November, late November. Okay, sailing had already become dangerous because by now it was after the Day of Atonement. Do you know what the other words for the Day of Atonement? Anybody? What is Day of Atonement? Yom Kippur. When is usually the Yom Kippur? Do you know when Yom Kippur comes? It's Christmas. Do you know Christmas and Yom Kippur is about the same, similar days? Okay. So anyway, so now I know we are getting into December. In other words, now wind is coming from north. Okay, from north. So much time has been lost and sailing had already become dangerous because by now it was after the Day of Atonement. So Paul warned them. What is he warning? What do you think he's warning? So he's saying, men, I can see that our voyage is going to be disastrous and bring great loss to ship and cargo and to our own lives also. Why? It's because storm is coming, because the northern wind is coming. Okay, and winter time, I guess the storm is really severe. So Paul knows this place very well because he's been, Mediterranean Sea many times. So he knows, after Yom Kippur, you're not supposed to go north. Okay, so he knows that. So, but the centurion, instead of listening to what Paul said, followed the advice of pilot and of the owner of the ship. Now let's sit back and think very carefully. Why would centurion not listen to Paul and listen to Pilate? And why would Pilate go against Paul? Now, who would know the ocean better, Paul or Pilate? Pilate, right? So Paul thinks he's going to have we're going to get into a big problem. Why would Pilate would continue to go? Money, yes, beautiful. Money. What kind of money? Lot of money. Why? Because he's carrying weeds, okay? So if he don't go now, the wheat's going to go bad, okay? So he has to, somehow this is the last shipment from Egypt to Rome. So he's thinking, I have to make it to make money, okay? So that's why he's pushing it through, even though it is dangerous. But Paul said, you already passed, so we shouldn't go. Since the harbor was unsuitable to winter in. What is winter in? It means you go there and wait until spring gets, the wind gets, from south again. So the pilot said, we can stay here and winter. the majority decided that we should sail on into the storm, hoping to reach Phoenix and winter there. Okay, Phoenix is at the tip of Crete, right there. So they are wishing that, okay, if we can make it over there, we can maybe possibly wait a few more weeks and then go to Rome. That's what he's thinking. Okay, so decided we should sail on, hoping to reach Phoenix and winter there. This was a harbor in Crete, facing both southwest and northwest because it's on the tip. When a gentle south wind began to blow. So what would you be thinking if you notice, oh, gentle south wind is blowing? We are very lucky. We are very lucky because remember, we have to go north and we have to take the south wind. So the pilot is thinking, oh, we are in luck because the gentle south wind is blowing. So if we can take that, we can go to Rome. When a gentle south wind began to blow, they saw their opportunities. So they weighed anchor and sailed along the shores of Crete. So they are, facing toward Rome. Before very long, a wind of hurricane force called the northeaster. That's northeast coming down. So in other words, the weather changed, swept on from the island. So from then on, now the hell begins. Okay, the ship was caught by the storm and could not head into the wind, obviously. So we gave way to it and were driven along. What does this mean? So we gave way to it and were driven along. Huh? So what you do is, if you are on this kind of ship, I just erased the thing. So if you're on a ship, one sail, when the wind is going crazy, what do? You sail off. You can take the sail down, okay, because it's wind going crazy. So after you pull down the sail, what happens to your ship? You go wherever the water takes you. Okay, so you're drifting. So this is what's happening. So we gave way to it and we're driven along. In other words, we're now in the mercy of wind. Okay, basically, it's a scary time. I mean, if you make it in a movie, it's a water splashing and as we passed to the lee of the small island called Cora. Okay, Cora is this. I was just going to show. This is the Cora. So this is Crete, and this is Cora. This is a small, very small, let me see. Okay, there we go. So this is Crete. Okay, so they are going from Caesarea to Rome, and this is Crete. Okay, it's not even in the map, but if you maximize it, there we go. That's Cora right there. So they're coming along, and they see the Cora and say, "Oh, we're passing," and then they went into this open ocean. Oh, this open ocean. Now you're in a big trouble. So as we passed the lee of the small island called Cora, we were hardly able to make the lifeboat secure. In other words, now we're in a topsy-turvy, So the man hoisted it aboard. So in other words, they took everything in, And then they passed a rope. Okay, listen very carefully what they did. Then they passed the ropes under the ship itself to hold it together. What are they doing? So ship is like this. So they're passing the rope, and then they're tying it down. Okay. Do you think that kind of rope will hold the boat? So, in other words, they are desperate. Okay. So they passed the ropes under the ship itself to hold it together because they were afraid they would run. Because they were afraid they would run aground on the sandbars of Syrtis. They lowered the sea anchor and let the ship be driven along. In other words, remember that tiny island? There was another smaller island, and they were afraid that they hit that rock, basically. So they just let everything and let just go out into the open sea. we took such a violent battering, okay, violent, so it's going, battering from the storm that the next day they began to throw the cargo aboard. Now, what are they doing? They are throwing away money. They are throwing away, what does that mean? In other words, they are now giving up the money. They want to save their lives, okay? Their lives. On the third day, they threw the ship's tackle overboard. Do you know what ship's tackle is? So all the equipment that has to, have to run the ship. In other words, they are now really desperate now, we're dying, with their own hands. So by then, Paul is saying, I told you. Can you hear Paul saying, I told you, man? When neither sun nor stars appeared for many days, in other words, this storm is going violent, and the storm continued raging, we finally gave up all hope of being saved. In other words, everybody's saying, we're dead. Okay? After they had gone a long time without food, about 2 weeks, okay, Paul stood up before them and said, men, you should have taken my advice not to say, he finally speaks. I told you, man, I told you my advice to sail from Crete, then you would have spared yourself this damage and loss. But now I urge you to keep up your courage, because not one of you will be lost, only the ship will be destroyed. Have you ever gone to an open ocean and get seasick? Yeah, it's really bad. It's really bad. I mean, I have gone one time. That's why I usually don't go on a boat. Because when I was a fourth year medical school student, I had a best friend named Greg. Okay, but I called him Gary for 4 years. He was my best friend. I mean, first day, he stand next to me, and the first day, so what's your name? Is Greg. And then somehow it registers to me as Gary. So I called him Gary. And finally, after about a year, when I said Gary, he said, huh? So anyways, he's from Galveston. He's a real cowboy. He's from Galveston, and he'd go duck hunting. And one day I went to duck hunting with him, and I threw away the gun. It looks so nice to watch it, but it's knee-deep mud. Walking with carrying this heavy gun. He said, are you my friend? Anyways, one day he told me, James, let's go ocean fishing. So ocean fishing? What is that? I said, you go out on the boat for about 4 hours and then you fish, you get this big fish. So, okay, And then we went on this boat and we went about 4 hours, and I didn't get sick at all when it was going out, going out about 30 miles an hour, I was holding on to the boat, For 4 hours, we went all the way from Galveston into the, Gulf of Mexico. And then we stopped and said, hey, let's fish from here. And then, the boat, when you fish, you go. And about, 30 minutes later, I get seasick. And then I told him, let's go, let's go. I mean, I'm getting sick, let's go. And you know what he told me? He said, James, we drove 4 hours here. We can't just go back. So are you my friend? So anyways, I'm lying down in the boat, and then boat is stirring, and now I'm throwing up, and my toenails coming out, I'm throwing up, and my bottom, and everything is coming up. So I told him, if you don't take me, I'm going to kill you. He's my best friend, He said, okay, I'll make you a deal. He said, there's an oil rig, in the ocean, there's an oil rig. So he said, I will take you to an oil rig, and you climb up there, and it doesn't move there. So we drove another 30 minutes, and then, he got off me, and I climbed up. And then I'm lying down, and it didn't move. Oil rigs are very deep, and it doesn't really move. So I lied down and slept about 4 hours. And after about 4 hours, he came by and banged on it. He said, let's go and come back. Never go out in the ship after that. So I kind of know what they're going through, It's just really bad. But now I urge you to keep up your courage, because not one of you will be lost, only the ship will be destroyed. Last night, an angel of God whom I belong and whom I serve stood beside me and said, do not be afraid, Paul. You must stand trial before Caesar. In other words, your life is guaranteed. Okay? And God has graciously given you the lives of all who sail with you. In other words, God had, I guess because he wanted to save Paul, he saved everybody, So keep up your courage, man, for I have faith in God that it will happen just as he told me. Nevertheless, we must run aground on some island on the 14th night. Okay, that's a long time to be, I was on sick for about 2 hours and I was dying. On the 14th night, we were still being driven across the Adriatic Sea. When about midnight, the sailors sensed they were approaching some kind of land. They took soundings. They throw that in and felt, These days, they would not throw the sail. You know what these days they do? They do the sonar, Anyways, they took soundings and found that water was 120 feet deep in the beginning. A short time later, they took soundings again and found it 90 feet deep. What does that mean? They are getting shallower and shallower, right? Fearing that we would be dashed against the rock. In other words, if do you know boats have brakes or not? Ships have brakes or not? You're mistaken. Modern day ships have a brake. Do you know how they brake? Yeah, the screw turn this way and then start turning backward. It's a brake. It stops, right? Well, unfortunately, remember these are sail ships. They have no brake. So imagine if you're going, toward the rock, you can't stop, and it hits you. It breaks apart. So fearing that they would dash against the rock, they dropped 4 anchors from the stern and prayed for daylight. In other words, they wanted to see what they are getting into, In an attempt to escape from the ship, the sailors let the lifeboat down into the sea. What are they doing? Escape. Who? The pilot and the sailors, Forget the passengers. So they're trying to escape, pretending they were going to lower some anchors from the bow. So they're trying to, but they're trying to get into the lifeboat and cheap guys. Anyways, imagine they want to save their own lives and kill the prisoners. Then Paul said to the centurion has the guns, and the soldiers, unless these men stay with the ship, you cannot be saved. In other words, unless everybody stays in the ship, everybody will die, So remember, I told you some time ago, when you see the word saved in the Bible, it means several things. Number one, saved means, you go to heaven. Saved means you are healed from the sickness, saved. Or you are saved from the death. Okay, so don't assume all the save means going to heaven. So you have to kind of discern. So what kind of save this is? From death, right? So the soldiers cut the ropes that held the lifeboat and let it drift away. So Julius must have given the order, don't, So just before dawn, Paul urged them to urge them all to eat, which means they haven't been eating. Would you be able to eat when you had? So 14 days, that's a long time to go on a fast. In other words, by this, everybody's too weak, okay? For the last 14 days, he said, you have been in constant suspense and have gone without food. You haven't eaten anything. Now I urge you to take some food. You need it to survive. Why? Because you wanna swim. Okay, if you don't eat for 14 days, you can't swim. Okay, so you have to eat something to swim. Not one of you will lose a single hair from his head. After he said this, he took some bread and gave thanks to God in front of them all. Then he broke it and began to eat. In other words, everybody got, their stomach full. They were all encouraged and ate some food themselves. Altogether, there were 276 of us on board. In other words, this is a large boat, okay? Really, Carnival, the cruise boat, it holds about 5,000. That's a huge boat. But against that, 2,000 years ago, holding about 300 passengers is probably one of the largest boats. When they had eaten as much as they wanted, they lightened the ship by throwing the grain into the sea. In other words, they're emptying everything, So do you know why they are doing that? So that boat would be lighter. They would go as close to the land possible. Because if it is heavy, then it hit the ground early, and then they have to swim a long distance. So they want to get closer and closer. When daylight came, they did not recognize the land, but they saw a bay with a sandy beach where they decided to run the ship aground if they could. Cutting loose the anchors, they left them in the sea and at the same time untied the ropes that held the rudders. In other words, they did everything so that a boat can hit the land softly. Then they hoisted a foresail to the wind and made for a beach. But the ship struck a sandbar and ran aground. The bow stuck fast and would not move, and the stern was broken to pieces by the pounding of the surf. In other words, now the ship is disintegrating. Okay, so they need to get out of the boat. The soldiers planned to kill the prisoners to prevent any of them from swimming away and escaping. What are they soldiers are doing? Because if they escape, who's going to be responsible for losing prisoners? Soldiers. So instead of being responsible, they wanted to kill and hold the head, so that they can show to people and say, we have to kill him. But the centurion wanted to spare Paul's life and kept them from carrying out their plan. He ordered those who could swim to jump overboard first and get to land. The rest were to get there on planks. I guess now the ship is completely broken down, so they are holding onto the pieces of wood on their pieces of the ship. In this way, everyone reached the land safely. In other words, all these 300-some people, finally the boat is broken, everything is lost, and they barely got onto the beach with holding onto their planks. So it kind of tells me, Paul knew that he was supposed to go to Rome, right? When he knew the weather and all that, and said, okay, let's do this so that we can go to Rome in safety. But life does not work that way. There are people who have different ideas, different agenda. So so Paul basically go through unnecessary hardship. And then he eventually ended up in Italy. Eventually, he landed in Malta, right there. This is the ship. This is the island they run aground right there. That's Malta. But eventually, in chapter 27, from Malta, from there they go all the way to Rome, on foot. So that's chapter 27. So let me tell you what happened in my life. So if you already know my story, you can just kind of close your eyes and think of something different, whatever you want to do. So I was born in 1957. So this is the story that I usually tell to the candidates on the day of Agape. So anyways, so while people are preparing Agape, I bring people and ask, please ask me a question. But this time, the Agape was prepared too soon, so we did not have enough time to have question and answer. And also, the candidates really did not ask many questions. So I was just kind of glad that we went to Agape. So, so remember, I was born in 1957, and I came to America in 1975, which makes me 18 years of age, right? So when I got to America, I said to myself, okay, I'm going to give you 10 years. I was young, I didn't know anything, I didn't have any idea what the life is, basically. But I said to myself in the airplane, in 10 years, you have to become a doctor, okay? So, I couldn't speak any English, but I went to college. When I mentioned retarded a few weeks ago on Sunday, Jonathan came to me and gave me a legal advice. There's a reason why, in my defense, when I finished high school, I did not finish my high school in Chicago. I finished my high school in Norton, Kansas. Do you know where Norton, Kansas is? Do you know where Kansas is? Kansas? Anybody been to Kansas? I know Tay been Kansas. Yeah. Oh, you been to Kansas? Oh, Well, Norton, Kansas is a small, very small town. So I went to school in Chicago, and maybe we stayed about 6 months. And then my father, who was a doctor in Korea, but when he came to America, he had to pass certain medical examination, which called flex. So when you pass the exam called flex, then they give you a license. Not recently, Connie passed it after the medical school. Remember Connie Chung? She passed the same exam. My father failed 3 times. He couldn't pass he tried 3 times in Chicago in 6 months because he's 56 years old man who couldn't speak English, but he tried. So he couldn't get a job. So he used to drive pizza during the night, deliver pizza. Do you know who ordered pizza 1 o'clock, 2 o'clock in the morning? Huh? Drunkard would order pizza? Student? The night workers. So my father used to be a doctor. So basically, he had a certain license that tells him that he's a doctor who did not pass the flex. So in between. So he sent out the application to all the hospitals in America to get a job. And finally, one hospital in Norton, Kansas accepted him and come and work for us. And that hospital back then it's called Mental Retarded Hospital. It's called State Hospital. So back then in 1975, in Norton, Kansas, there was a large hospital having about 500 intellectually challenged people, disabled people. Back then, we used to call retarded people. So, anyways, so no American doctor would go there. Would you go there if you're an American-born doctor? So they could not have the doctor for 10 years, and they had an application. What is this? Well, he's some kind of doctor. What kind of doctor is he? Well, he's from Korea, and he used to be a doctor. Okay, let's hire him. It's better than nothing. So we moved. So my final 2 months of my high school was spent in Norton, Kansas high school. So when I walked into the graduating high school, there were 30 students graduating class. When I joined, it became 31. So anyways, so after I finished my high school, I wanted to go to college. But my brother, my second brother, my young second brother, he wanted to go to private school in New York. So one day my father called me and told me this, James, your brother, Douglas, his name is Douglas wants to go to New York University. And I said, okay, but it's a private school. Okay, so he told me, I cannot support 2 of you going to college. So I cannot support you. And I'm thinking, so between 2 of us, you choose. That's the younger brother's agony, Anyways, so I asked him, so what does he want to study? And he said he wants to study to be a movie director. I said, what? Because he used to be a law student in Korea. He used to be a Seoul Bop. He attended a Seoul Bopdae. He's one of the, Anyways, he said a movie. So he wanted to abandon the law and he wanted to become a movie director. He said, what? So you support him to go to movie and then I go to college. And so guess what? For 1 year, I worked in that hospital. And it was a blessing for me because all these, retarded people, they're all American born. Their IQ is like 4 to 5 year old level. Some of them are lower, they poop everywhere, but they can all speak English. So, when I talk to them, I did not feel shame. I did not feel embarrassed because they're like a little child. So they speak to me in English. So for a year, I worked there as an orderly. You know what orderly is? Orderly is the one that giving them bath at nighttime. So they have soiled their pants. So we'd have a series of shower, and they're all in there, one of every in there. So I have a big stick with a sponge in it, and I have a bucket with the soap. So I stick it in, and then next, I did that for a whole year. Anyways, I went to college, and then I went to University of Kansas. It is a state university. Back then, if you graduate from the state accredited high school, you did not have to do anything. So automatic transfer. So I went there, and it's in Lawrence, Kansas. You know what? Tay, you know where Lawrence, Kansas is. So I stayed there for 1 year, and then remember in 1990, 1990, I went to Trestias. By then, I moved from Kansas to Nebraska. My father finally passed the flex. As soon as he passed the flex, guess what he did? Sayonara. Okay, to the hospital, because now he's a licensed doctor. So he got his first office, the town of Red Cloud, which is about 600 population. The whole city has 600 people living in, but they invited my father to become their town's doctor. Okay, so Nebraska, Kansas, Nebraska. So we went down to Nebraska, and from there I went to. We stayed there for about a year, and after that, he became a little better in English. So he did not want to stay in 600 population. He wanted to go to big city, Dallas, Texas. So we moved. So I moved from Kansas to Nebraska to Dallas. From there, I went to University of Texas at Arlington, and then I passed my MCAT, and I went to medical school in 1981. How old am I? 1981. 24. I remember I came to 18. So I stayed there 4 years. And after 4 years, I took the flex test. And I passed, first time, obviously. So, yeah, my father told me, "You passed?" It took me 6 times. Dad, I went to American medical school. So anyways, I still remember we went to Austin, Texas to take that exam. And me and my friend, Gary, it's 3-day exam. So one day we took the exam, and then we went out to eat, and we eat cheeseburger and all that, and we played games, during all night we played games, and we went back to hotel, and then next day took another exam, and then we play again. But anyways, I passed it. So my class of 1985, class of 85. How old am I? 28. And then I did 3 years of residency in Fort Worth, Texas. You know where Fort Worth, Texas is? Fort Worth, Texas, yeah. Fort Worth, Texas. So I finished my residency in 1988, 3-year residency. How old am I? 31. So by the time I was 28, I passed the flex. Then I stayed in Fort Worth doing my residency. And after I finished my residency in 1988, Jonathan was born in 1984, and Jamie was born in 1988. So they are about 3 years apart. So anyways, 1990, I went to Trestias. Remember 1990? So after I finished, this is a story, in 1988, when I finished my residence, usually when people finish residence, do you know what they have? Loans, student loans. How much? A lot. Well, back then it was the same, but me was a little different. I got I got a scholarship. My tuition was all paid. And then I got some more money and I saved. So guess what? As I finished my medical school and starting my residency in Fort Worth, I bought a house. That's very unusual because I was very stingy, very stingy, very stingy. Remember, all throughout my medical school and residency, I used to drink Tang. Do you know what Tang is? Tang, remember the powder, yellow powder? That was my drink, Tang, and we used to eat noodle every night. Noodle, makguksu. Anyway, so after I finished so I found the house that I bought in 1988 at the price of $60,000. This is in Fort Worth, Texas. I still have the picture. Jonathan and Jamie standing there, little child standing. Meadow and Judah's age standing. This is a 1,400 square foot, 3-bedroom house. Okay, I bought at $60,000. Okay, $60,000, pretty good, huh? Yeah. So, and then after I finished my residence in 1988, I moved to Dallas. It's Carrollton, Texas. I sold this house. I paid about half down and half mortgaged, this one. And then I bought this house. That's pretty good. 3,700 square foot. I paid $220,000 in 1988. 1988. For your information, the house that we bought in Laguna Niguel in 1990, it was sold at 800. So, so this is not a small house. So I bought it in 1988. So now 1990, when I went to church, yes, how old am I? 32, right? So I got blessed big time. It was in September. So I came back and I wanted to move to Los Angeles. Okay. So immediately I came back from Trestias. Next month in October, I sent my wife. Okay. So I am GTD 21. My wife is GTD 22 Kamaboko. Anyway, so she went October. And she came back. For your information, all my life, I was very arrogant, really. How do I know? Do you remember any teacher's name in your high school? You do, right? Middle school? Elementary? Yeah. I don't remember any of them. None. Every teachers, I look down on them. If you know that much, why you're teaching this, you would be making lots of money. That's my philosophy all my life, But when I met Pastor Kim, I fell in love, and somehow he raptured me. So I have never respected anybody, but somehow first day I met him in Trestias, he just got me. So when I came back, I wanted to move back to Los Angeles. Okay, so I sent my wife, and she came back, and I picked her up from the airport. And driving home, I asked this: "You like Pastor Kim, didn't you?" I said, "Oh, he's really good." So next question was, "Do you want to move to Los Angeles?" And guess what she said? She said, "No." She not say one time. Remember, she used to say, "No." I said, "Why not?" And this is what she said. She said, Pastor Kim said, you're supposed to serve Jesus wherever you go. So I like this house. I want to stay here, basically. So I got so disappointed. But so we came back, and then this is our bedroom, this one, master bedroom. So me and my wife lying down in the bed, and then Jonathan and Jamie was playing in the beds on the floor in the master bedroom. It was about 3:00 in the afternoon, and you all know what happened. My wife's just hit by lightning, Holy Spirit, hit by the Holy Spirit, and he starts saying all kinds of stuff, and then immediately I knew She was lying down, lying down like this, and I'm lying down right next to her, and say, how was it? We're talking this, and then all of a sudden she sits up and she goes, what the? I knew immediately she was speaking in tongue. I don't speaking in tongue. She doesn't speaking in tongue. We don't know anybody speaking in tongue, except one person. Because when I was growing up, my grandmother, who passed away by this time, my wife never knew my grandmother. Anyway, she used to speak tongue when I was young, very young. She would come to my house and I stick my head and she would clean my ears. And then I usually say, Hami, speak in tongue, speak in tongue. And then she would go, and then she would speaking in tongue. And when she sat up and I know, oh, she's speaking in tongue. And I got so jealous. I got so jealous. So I was thinking, if she's speaking in tongue, I need to speaking in tongue. So I held her hand. Somehow I thought the power would come to me with the hand, Nothing happened. So that did not work. So guess what I did? I held her hand, and then, it still didn't happen. So guess what? So I kissed her. This is a deep Christian, deep French kiss. I kissed her. And I thought that power would come to me. This is a true story. Did not happen. So guess what I did? I held her and I sucked her tongue into my mouth and bit on it. Because she was, and I could feel her tongue in my mouth going all crazy. Nothing happened. And then she said all kinds of stuff. And then she said this, you go to Los Angeles and help Pastor Kim. I heard that. And then from that on, she started saying, let's go to Los Angeles. She just said, no, a few hours ago. But she said, from then on, she said, let's go to Los Angeles. So I wanted to go to Los Angeles, remember? But remember, for us to move from Texas to Los Angeles, first of all, I need to sell this house, right? And not only to sell a house, I have to transfer all the kids, Jonathan and Jamie, to Los Angeles. And then I have a bigger problem. Me, what am I going to do in Los Angeles? Because if you're a doctor or a lawyer in certain state, you can practice only that state. You cannot practice medicine in California if you have a Texas license. So you have to go reciprocal, license transfer. How long does that take? That's usually 1 to 2 years. You know how they work, yeah? So you send the application and you don't have to take the flex again, but you have to do the, transfer. And I knew that. So I was planning about 3 years. You know how I plan the things, So about 3 years. But she said, no, we need to go now. And I said, you mean now? He said, right now. You mean right this moment? He said, well, yes, right this moment. It drove me crazy. So I still remember. One night I'm working in the emergency. Remember, I used to work 3 nights and 4 days off, 3 on, 4 off, 12-hour shift. So about 3 o'clock in the afternoon, in the morning, I'd go out in the parking lot, big, huge parking lot, and I'd look at the sky and I'd say, God, is this the way the Christian's supposed to? This is just terrible. Because my wife, you know how my wife works. Every single moment, let's go. It's like, what? Now, I have to sell this house. Let's go. Drove me crazy. Remember, this is at the end of October now, 1990 October. So one day I came up with this idea. Said, okay, I'm planning to move in 3 years. You're planning to move in 1 day. So let's just ask God. Okay, so I came up with that idea. So we used to go to Wednesday night service, So after the service, you go over there and I go over there and let's ask God the date. So since God is living, you get the date and I get the date and that matches and then we move that day. Okay, so I went to church and we went to church and she went over there and I went over there and I asked God, can you give me the date? Please give me the date. And all of a sudden it came to me, April 15th. April. And I was thinking, April 15th, it's a tax day. You know, doctors hate April 15th. You know, when you file, many people file taxes, you get money back. I have never, ever gotten money back. You know, April 15th is the last day to pay. So we used to pay like 20,000, 30,000. So we hate that day. So I'm thinking, April 15th is tax day. Maybe I'm confused. So anyways, prayer ended and we're coming home about 10 o'clock at night. So I asked her, Julie, did you get the date? And she said, yes, I got the date. Did you get the date? I said, well, I kind of got the date. And she said to me, what's the date? And I'm saying, no, you tell me the first. And then she said this, no, you got the idea. You say the date. I said, okay, April 15th. And she said, yes, that's what the date I got. You know the story, right? You know, she didn't pray that. She didn't pray to give the date. She said, she told me later, a long time later, she said, I prayed to God to give you the date. Anyways, so somehow now we, settled on April 15th, 1991. Remember, this is November, right? So we put this house on sale. I don't know if you know 1990. That was when the real estate went down. Okay. Anyways, we put on the sale and all that, and there are a lot of people. Isn't this a house nice? A lot of people come by. It's beautiful house, good, And then no offer, zero. I mean, there are people coming to see it, and good house, and no offer at all. I was thinking, well, since God gave the day April 15th, so if maybe sometime in January or February, somebody come to my house and say, oh, this is good, and then he offered me a price, and then, we counter offer, and then, we sign the contract, and then in the beginning of April, we sign it, and then escrow is closed and we move, and then I go around the churches and give testimony. That was my plan, The problem is December came, gone, January and came, gone. And I'm nervous because, this is a big house. Back then, I think I mortgaged about, I don't know, maybe, I can't remember, but about 15, 16, 150 or 160,000. So there's a big chunk of money there to pay money. If I move away and this house sits empty, I have to still make a mortgage payment. That's terrible. I cannot do. So we must sell it. But January come by, February come by, nothing, not a single bite. So I'm getting desperate. So remember, I'm 33 years old. Who's 33 years old? 34. You are 33. Young. I didn't know anything about Christianity. So I'm getting desperate. So I'm praying to God, can you sell this? So it didn't work. So one day I got an idea. So I took a bath. I scrubbed it down, put a white towel in a master bedroom, and then I'm butt naked and crunched down. So thinking that if I pray like that, you'd listen. February come and gone, March come and gone, and then April. April 15th, 1991 was Monday. So 14th is Sunday. So we decided that at least we need to go to Sunday service. So in order to go to Sunday service in 14th, we have to arrive at least 12 or 13th. Yeah, so we have to leave at least 10th. Okay, so about 5th of April, a big van, the van line, the moving truck, the huge truck came by and took everything from this house to Los Angeles. The house that I rented in Los Angeles, so let me tell you about that. In about October or November, there was another tragedy in November. So I flew from Texas to Los Angeles to serve as a team member for the first time. GTD number 23. Remember 21, 22, 23. 23, I came to Los Angeles. So guess which department I worked? Setup. Yes, setup. Remember, I'm 33-year-old young guy. Guess what the chief said? Oh, setup. So I was making, there were like 80 people, candidate, were making bed and all that, and cleaning the toilets, all that. And one time I kind of came to my senses. I was cleaning toilet. All of a sudden, it came to me and said, what the heck am I doing here? So I'm a doctor. I'm cleaning toilet in this mountain. And then when I said that in my heart, I heard a voice. I heard a voice saying, James, that's the voice of God. Yeah, I remember James. Is it really difficult to clean the toilet for me? I died for you on the cross. Is it really that bad to clean the toilet for me? I said, no, Lord. I will lick the toilet. The reason why I went there is because after the team member, remember 4 days? I was thinking maybe I'll take 3 more days and look for the house to rent. So as soon as the TD was ended, my brother used to live in Torrance, so I was looking for house in Torrance. Remember, I'm from Texas, and it's in Torrance, okay? And they are showing this house to rent, and I'm thinking, this house in Texas is $50 a month. They were asking like $2,000. Go, you know the housing difference? How much do you think this is in Irvine? In Irvine? Probably about 2 to 3 million. Yeah, I zillowed it just before we service. It's still 800,000, 6 to 800,000. That's why people go to Texas. That's why people go to Texas. I mean, this house in Irvine. Look at that. Look at that. Anyways, so I'm seeing this. I'm not going to take it. I refuse everything. So this is the last day. Afternoon, I have to fly. So I woke up early in the morning. I get in my car, and it dawned on me. As soon as I got in the car, it dawned on me. I have never prayed to God to give me a house. Duh. So I got the newspaper, and then I put it on my lap in the car. And I said, God, can you give me a house? And then I prayed, and then I opened the ad for rent, and then I found a number. And phone number, and I called that guy, and a Japanese person answered. I still remember his name. His name is Tawa. And he said, "Oh, you're looking for?" Yes, I'm looking for. Oh, give me the address. Then I'll go to the house. So I drove not very far, maybe about 5 minutes, right around. And then I went to the small road, and then I saw a little. It looks just like Pastor Kim. He's bald and he's chunky and he's short, he's standing in the street. So I stopped right in front of him, and I rolled down and said, "Are you Mr. Tawa-san?" He said, "Shin-sang?" So oh yeah. So we get down and shake hand, and then this is what happened. This is exactly what happened. So he opened the door of the house, okay, to rent. I walked into the house in 2 steps, maybe 1, 2, and then I turned around. Something came over me. As soon as he opened the door and stepped 2 steps, it came to my heart. Said, "This is your house." So I walked 2 steps and I turned around and said, "I'll take it." And then remember this guy following me? I turned around and said, "I'll take it." He goes, "Oh, you take it." But I later find out that he had not rented this house for 5 years, because after he rented for 1 year, they wrecked the house. So he spent like $50,000 to remodel it. So he's been refusing the people for 5 years. But later he told me, as soon as I walked and turned, I said, "I take it." Something came over him. He said, "This is his house." So, and then, so I got the house. Eventually, I found out that that's the house that they used to live. And then he bought a big land in Palos Verdes and built this huge house. Anyways, by the time they moved, he got divorced. But he used to come to my house almost every week. Every week. Every week. You know, so he's kind of, hi, Chinsang. He said, hi, you know, and he would walk into the house. What kind of landlord comes to, I didn't know, I have never rented a house, you know. I thought that was normal. So I didn't know. You know? So he'd walk into the house and guess why now I realize why he came to my house. Why? To check on me, you know. But you know, after about 6 months, we got really close. I mean, we've seen each other many times. One day, something came over me. I was in fire, you know. He's like several years older than me, you know. He's older than me. He's much richer, okay? Richer. Anyways, one day he came over me and something came over me to witness to him. So I just let him have it, you know, Jesus Christ. And at the end, he said, do you believe in Jesus? Hi. You know, he knelt down in front. So landlord is kneeling down in front. So something came over him and everything. He said, hi. And he said, do you believe in Jesus as Lord? And he said, hi. And then, you know, he got saved. Anyways, he went back and eventually he died alone in that house. And many years later, I went to TD and I run into a guy. I ran into him and looked, and his name tag said Tawa. And I looked up, Tawa? I know Tawa. And this tall guy telling me, oh, you know Tawa-san? You know, so yeah. So where do you know Tawa-san? I said, oh, I used to live in Torrance and, you know, I rented a house from him. He said, Torrance, Tawa? He gave me the, I said, yes. And then he said, oh, that's my brother. That's my older brother. And he started, you know, crying in front of me. Turns out the whole family is a believer except my Tawa, you know. His father is a pastor. So everybody's been praying. And then Tawa, you know, the younger Tawa started crying in front of me and say, why are you crying? Because he died. Oh, how did he die? Well, he died alone in the swimming pool. I guess he was taking a walk in a huge house and he collapsed and had a heart attack and he died. And 3 days later, gardener found him. And then, you know, so I'm really sad he was not saved. And I looked up and said, what are you talking about? And so I told my story and we hugged each other and was, you know, it's an amazing story. Anyways, so that's the house that we shipped it, you know. And and then now it's April 10th, not a bite. So we emptied this house. So we sold. We had two cars. I had a Volvo, the 7 Series Volvo. Remember the 7 Series Volvo? You know 7 Series Volvo. Yeah. Anyways, I had I think it was 741, and then I had a Buick LeSabre. So I sold the LeSabre, and then on a Volvo. 4 of us, okay, me and my wife and Jonathan and Jamie sitting in the back, came around the house. You know, there's one thing different between California house and Texas house is, look at the house. Where's the garage? In the back. So when I came to California, I was shocked. They're all garages in the front. It's like, this is a cheap house. You know, Texas, you have a house. I mean, here's the house, street, and then in between the house, there's a small alley. That's for the residents to park, you know, to go into their garage. Anyways, we come out of the house and we sat standing right in front of the house, okay, 4 of us. And we looked up, it was so beautiful. Leaving it empty, so beautiful and so scary. This was the scariest moment in my entire life. My whole entire investment is in there, and now it's empty, sitting empty, and you know. One more thing. So I'm getting desperate in about February. So I talked to the realtor and said, lower the price, right? We put it up at 240, And realtor said, well, if you want to sell it, let's put it at 18, 180. 180, okay, my wife said, no. So, honey, no. Honey, no, no, no. She wanted to sell it at 240 from the original price at all. She said, God told us, don't change it. And so you're crazy. Now you're leaving. So we're looking up, it was April 10th, I think. April 10th, 1990. I was 33 years old. My wife was turned just 30. We're two young, beginning Christians looking back. It was so scary. And then from here, this is Dallas, Texas. This is Los Angeles. So we drove first night, all day long this way. I passed Amarillo around 5 o'clock in the afternoon. And then we start looking for Six Motel. You know what Six Motel is? I know. If I go now, I don't go to inns. I go to hotel. But back then, Six Motel, 8 days in. Do you know 8 days in? Anyways, Amarillo was full, so we drove a little bit further, and somewhere here we slept. We didn't speak a word. From Carrollton, Texas, all the way to Amarillo, none of us. We didn't even listen to radio. We didn't talk. I was just silent. If any one of us spoke, we're going to shot him. We're so scared, and I was so frustrated, so angry, so upset. All kinds of emotion. My wife knew that. She was just silent, because she was pushing and pushing and pushing. So we slept there. Early in the morning, we got up and went all the way past Albuquerque. Remember the song? By the time ketchup, past city, Albuquerque. Anyways, I went to Albuquerque and then all the way, and then we stopped at Flagstaff, Arizona. Flagstaff, Arizona. It was about 6 o'clock in the evening. So we ate dinner, and then we went to another, I think, a Holiday Inn or something like that. And I wanted to swim with Jonathan and Jamie. So I told Julie, okay, I'm going to take swimming. So I took Jonathan and Jamie. Swimming pool, outdoor swimming pool? The cheap motel swimming pool, Anyways, we were doing that, and I came back. And I saw something very strange. My wife was kneeling on top of the bed. Usually when you go to a motel, you lie down on bed like this, right? But when I walked in and Jonathan and Jamie runs in, she was just kneeling down, and she looked up and she saw me and said, call Carrollton. I said, why? Call Carrollton. Honey, this is 8 o'clock, and in Texas, it's 10 o'clock at night, And she said, call, I was angry, I said, no. I said, call Carrollton. I said, why? I said, so-and-so, I forgot her name. So-and-so called us. No, I think Julie called her, because when we were leaving, evidently the realtor told Julie to call her on the way. Anyway, we didn't call her in Amarillo first day. And the second day, evidently, they used to have a phone in the motel, operator, Anyway, she called her, and this is what happened. She called her, and she said, amazing thing happened. God that you believe must be living. 1 hour after you left, remember 1 hour after we left, there was a phone call calling the realtor, saying, let's see the house. Okay. And then realtor opened the door. This guy walked 2 steps, and guess what he said? He turned around, he said, I'll take it. No negotiation, no nothing, I'll take it. 240 right away. Exactly same thing had happened with Tawa. So in the beginning, I didn't believe it. I said, are you sure? Are you sure? And she finally said this, James, you need to find a fax machine. Fax machine. So where's the fax machine? You find the fax machine. So this is Flagstaff, Arizona in 1990. 1990. So I went down to office in the motel. So do you have a fax machine? And he looked up and said, "Are you crazy?" So I asked, "Is there any fax machine in this town?" And he said, "There's only one fax machine in this town." One. So where is it? He said, in Skaggs grocery store. You know, I don't know, you probably don't know. Skaggs is the grocery chain in Western area. Anyways, he said Skaggs grocery store, it opened 24 hours. So I drove there. Okay, by the time I got there, it's about midnight. Okay, about midnight. So I got there and I called her again, said, "I'm in Skaggs," and gave her a phone number. And then the facts start coming out. You know, old fax machines have a roll, right? And then there's no cut, you know. And it's like, you know how many pages you have to sign to sell a house? And it's coming out, and you know, it coming out, and I start rolling it. And you know, there are so many places you have to initial and sign. I signed it, and you know, and then I put it back into the machine carefully, the whole thing in one piece, you know, and then it start faxing it. By the time finished, it was about 2 o'clock in the morning. I came back, and then we slept. And the next morning from Flagstaff, Arizona to Los Angeles. Flagstaff, Arizona to Los Angeles. Takes about 8 hours, I believe. Guess what we did? We sang like crazy. All doors open, and we were singing and singing, you know. Until then, we didn't sing. For 2 days, we didn't. You know, I mean, we were singing and singing, and I don't know how we got, you know. Anyways, we came, and I think we arrived on 12th of April. Friday, 12th of April. I remember I sold it at 12th April. Do you remember my wife giving testimony? We bought the house in Laguna Hills 2 years ago. 2 years ago. Guess when we signed, closed the escrow? April 12th. We forgot. And somehow God reminded her, remember 30-something years ago, you gave up your house on April 12th. And the same day, we closed the house. Same day. Now that is really difficult to match. I forgot, my wife forgot, you know. I had to do a lot of research, you know, which day. Anyways, so we arrived in Friday. We received a moving van on Saturday. And then on Sunday, April 14th on Sunday, me and my wife and 2 children, we went to Cerritos and walking into Grace Korean Church for the first time. And you know, the opening song is this, 나의 하나님. And you know, there are about 800 people, you know, open the door, and we were walking into the church, and they're singing that song, and both of us were just about to die. And then something amazing happened. As soon as we moved, I needed a job. Okay, remember in October, I sent the application to change my medical license, which I'm thinking 2 years. I'm fully ready to work for, you know, McDonald's. I used to work in Burger King, so you know. Anyways, come February, I received a big envelope from state of California, and I opened it, and I almost fell off and died. In it, there was a brand new medical license. In about 6 months, I got a new license. No, not even 6 months. About 4 months, I received a reciprocal license. I was crazy. So we came in, and now I did not want to work in the hospital. I want to open up the clinic, you know. So now we live in Torrance. So me and my brother, who just finished his residency, I have 3 years of background, you know. So we decided to open the clinic, you know. It takes money. How much money? whole lot of money. You know, we calculated about $250,000. Do we have it? No. So we start knocking on the bank. That, I mean, we went to 3 banks, and none of them would lend us. You know, even though we are doctor, we are brand new doctors are opening. They said no, we can't. And then third one said something very strange. He said, why don't you go meet such and such a person in Torrance Memorial Hospital? You know what Torrance Memorial Hospital is? That's a big hospital in Torrance. So after that, me and my brother walked into the Torrance Memorial Hospital and asked the person, we want to see the administrator. So who are you? So we are doctors from Texas, and we want to meet him. I said, oh, okay, he's on 5th floor. So we went up to 5th floor and knocked on it. His secretary came out and he said, you the doctors? I said, yeah, we want to meet him. So we went in and we walked in, and this is what happened. We sat. I said, hi, I'm Dr. Shin, and this is Dr. Peter, and I'm Dr. Jane. And he said, we came from Texas, and we want to open up an office. And I said, what's your specialty? So, we are both board certified family doctors. And at that, he stood up. Actually, he stood up and he said, oh, welcome to Torrance. And this is what he said: you don't need money. We will set you up a clinic. Where? Right in front of the Torrance Memorial Hospital. I said, are you sure? He said, not only that, we will guarantee your income $10,000 a month each. In other words, when you open the business in the beginning, there's no money coming in, right? So they are guaranteeing whatever the money we make and match it so that we will take $10,000 each month. So are you sure? I said, yes. And so we came out and, we gave high five and all that. And eventually they set up a really nice office with a fully decked with the instruments. They spent about $260,000, and at the end they just gave us a key. It's illegal now. Back then it was legal. But anyways, they gave me a key and we walked in. It was brand new. Later we found out, about a week before we knocked on his door, there's a large family doctor group in Torrance Memorial Hospital. In Torrance, there are 2 major hospitals. One, Torrance Memorial. The other one is, anybody know? There's another large hospital called Little Company of Mary. In fact, I think Jesse's mother died Little Company of Mary Hospital. Anyways, this large family doctor group moved from Torrance Memorial to Little Company of Mary. They bought them out. So they don't have family doctors. About a week after we walked in, and they embraced us like crazy. Imagine if we were late about another week. We would have never gotten that. It's a perfect timing. He stood up. Anyways, we walked in and we started practicing. Interesting thing is, they guaranteed us $10,000. So first month, we made 0 money. So I'm waiting for $10,000 check. Something went strange. So they said, we can't give you this month. We'll give you next month. And we were saying, are you sure? Because remember, we are living on credit cards. But I knew first fruit belongs to God. So we're fully ready to give first fruit to God. Second month came. Surely we made 0 money. So we received 2 checks, one for me, one for Dr. Peter. $20,000, $20,000. God has a very funny sense of humor. I signed it. On that Sunday, I put it in the envelope and give it, just check it, endorsed it, and send it in. That's how we began our walk. If you ask me, when was the most scary time of your Christian walk? Those 6 months, especially those 3 days, especially those 2 days while we were driving from Carrollton to Flagstaff, Arizona. Now imagine if we didn't go through that. Imagine Apostle Paul didn't go through these kind of hardship, would we really grow that much? Would we really be a strong Christian like that? You know, people come to church, come to Christ, and they want to become a strong Christian, but they want to take an easy road. You know, I mean, it's sad to say, not many Christians do even tithing. You know, forget the first fruit. There's a reason why, because it's not their priority. It's not the priority. If God tells me to do the same thing again, I don't know if I could do that again. I was 33 years old. We didn't know nothing about life, nothing about Christianity. We're just right on the boat. And from the very beginning, Pastor Kim made sure, you do this, you do that. And somehow me and my wife blindly following his advice. And then I look back, whole thing is completely orchestrated. I could tell, I mean, the possibility, the mathematical odds of all these things happening is really, really difficult. But you know, God is faithful. God is faithful, and God's still looking for a faithful person. If you do that, if you do according to what God tells you, it comes through. Now I'm 67 or 66, and my wife, I went to Korea. She's 62, and on the way to airport, this is what we talked about, last Monday. Say, honey, we did this for 34 years, and it was really a good life. A good life. And my wife said, yeah. She doesn't say no anymore. Say, honey, it was really a nice life. Even if we die now, it had been a good life. You know, we left that house and we moved to Torrance, and then eventually we moved to Fullerton, and then came back here. You know, if you trust God, and know that He is faithful, He will come through. From the moment wake up until we lay our heads down, He is faithful. Have trust. Amen. That's the story of me moving from Texas to Los Angeles. Let's pray. I hope something had stirred in your heart, and I hope that you do the right thing, which is to trust Him, to have faith, because He's faithful. My Lord, thank you so much for I left my life, our life, onto your hand in 1990. Somehow, you drove me, you drove our family, and you are always with us. Now I realize that you are faithful. You are faithful. Lord, I pray that every single one of us in this room realize that you are faithful, you are worthy, you're trustworthy, and do the right thing in our lives, Lord. And Lord, our lives only come one time. We only live one time. May we live our life in such a way that we would be joyful and happy and fulfilled of all the things that you bestowed upon us, that you have prepared for us to live. Thank you, Lord. When your providence come upon every single one of us, we would say yes. Even if we are scared, we're afraid, we'd have faith enough to follow your footsteps, Lord. Thank you, and I pray all this in the name of Jesus. Amen. Amen. Let's give God the glory. Thank you. I have one announcement. Next Thursday is July 4th. So you don't have to come to church, but I'm going to have Bible study because of KM. KM want to have it. So Wednesday is not a holiday. So if we skip Thursday, then we'd be really very skewed. So I'm gonna go last chapter of Book of Acts briefly on Thursday. Yeah, you don't have to come. You are free. Okay. Thank you.